The velvet curtain trembled under Gabriel Torres's fingertips. Beyond it, 300 people waited in the Riverside Theater's main auditorium, their murmurs rising like a wave he couldn't stop. In exactly 90 seconds, that curtain would part. In 90 seconds, he would step onto that stage completely alone. In 90 seconds, Victoria Hartwell, the woman whose face graced billboards across 6 continents, would watch him fail. His hands were shaking. They'd been shaking for the past 20 minutes, ever since Victoria had made her announcement to the cast. "Let's have some fun," she'd said, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Our custodial friend here keeps telling everyone he used to act. So let's give him a chance to prove it. Gabriel, you're doing the opening monologue from The Tempest. Right now. Alone." The assistant director had laughed nervously. The other actors had gone quiet, their eyes sliding away from his. Someone in the back had whispered, "This is cruel." But Victoria had already turned to the stage manager, already given the order. The audience was being told they were about to witness a special performance, a surprise treat before the main show. Gabriel closed his eyes. The industrial cleaner smell still clung to his uniform, the dark blue jumpsuit with maintenance stitched across the back. His daughter's face flashed through his mind. Maya, 7 years old, asleep in their studio apartment 6 blocks away. The neighbor watching her had to leave by 10. He couldn't lose this job. He couldn't. But Victoria Hartwell had made it clear. Perform, or pack up your mop bucket and don't come back. Freeze this moment. Hold it here. Gabriel's hand on the curtain, his heart hammering against his ribs, his throat dry as paper. Because what happens next will crack open everything Victoria Hartwell thinks she knows about talent, about worth, about who deserves to stand in the light. But first, you need to understand how Gabriel got here. You need to see the before. 18 months ago, Gabriel Torres had been someone else entirely. Not famous, not wealthy, but whole. He'd been an adjunct professor at Riverside Community College, teaching introduction to theater and running the student drama program. The pay was terrible, but he'd had health insurance. He'd had a small house with a yard where Maya could play. He'd had a wife who kissed him goodbye every morning on her way to her nursing shift. Then the cancer diagnosis came. Stage 4. 6 weeks later, Elena was gone, and the medical bills buried Gabriel so deep he couldn't see daylight. The house went first, then the car, then everything else. The college had already eliminated his position in budget cuts. He'd sent out 60 applications to other schools, other theaters, anywhere that might want a 41-year-old man with a graduate degree in dramatic arts and 15 years of teaching experience. Nothing. Not even rejection letters. Just silence. The janitor job at Riverside Theater had been his last option. Night shift, minimum wage, no benefits. He mopped the lobby after performances, scrubbed the bathrooms, emptied trash cans filled with playbills and empty wine bottles. He worked from 8 at night until 4 in the morning, then went home to wake Maya for school, made her breakfast, walked her to the bus stop, and collapsed into sleep while she was gone. The other custodians were kind. The security guard, James, always saved him half a sandwich from the staff room. The box office manager, Patricia, sometimes slipped him free tickets to shows when she knew Maya had a day off school. Even some of the younger actors were friendly, asked him questions about staging and character work when they found out about his background. But Victoria Hartwell, the star of the theater's current production of The Tempest, had only ever looked at him once. She'd been leaving rehearsal, and he'd been waxing the floor near the stage entrance. She'd stepped around his work area without breaking stride, phone pressed to her ear, laughing about something. Her heel had caught the edge of his cleaning bucket and tipped it over, sending soapy water across the floor. She'd glanced back, seen him scrambling to contain the spill, and kept walking. Didn't apologize. Didn't even slow down. That had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, she'd been different. Colder. The other actors had mentioned it too. She'd been making comments about the help, about how people needed to stay in their lanes, about how everyone wanted to be an actor these days, but nobody wanted to put in the real work. 2 nights ago, Gabriel had been cleaning the green room when he'd overheard her on the phone. "The theater is letting anyone in now," she'd been saying. "Even the janitor thinks is qualified to give acting notes. I caught him watching rehearsal yesterday, mouthing along with the lines. It's pathetic. She'd seen him then, standing frozen by the doorway with his trash bag. She'd smiled, made sure he heard her next words. Some people need to accept their place. Now, standing behind this curtain, Gabriel understood. This wasn't about giving him a chance. This was about humiliation. This was about putting him back in his place, making sure everyone saw the difference between real actors and people who pushed brooms. The stage manager's voice crackled through his earpiece. 30 seconds. Gabriel's breathing was too fast. His vision was starting to narrow. He thought about walking away, right now, just stepping back from the curtain and disappearing into the darkness backstage. He thought about Maya, waking up tomorrow to learn her father had lost his job. He thought about the rent, due in 6 days. He thought about Elena, who used to sit in audiences watching him perform, who used to tell him his voice could fill any room. If you're watching this, wherever you are in the world, leave a comment and tell me your location. Because this story, this moment right here, it's happening everywhere. In every city, every town, every place where someone's been told they don't belong. They're not good enough. They should remember their place. And I want you to know you're not alone in witnessing this. We're all here together. The curtain began to part. Gabriel walked onto the stage. The lights hit him like a physical force, white and hot and absolute. For 3 seconds, he couldn't see anything beyond them. Then his eyes adjusted, and the audience materialized. Rows and rows of faces, some curious, some confused, some already smiling in anticipation of the joke. In the front row, Victoria Hartwell sat with her arms crossed, her expression pleasant and patient. Waiting, Gabriel stood center stage in his maintenance uniform. He could feel the sweat gathering at his collar. His hands hung at his sides, empty. No script, no preparation, no warning. Just him and 300 people and the words he'd have to pull from memory. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Someone in the audience coughed. The sound echoed. Victoria shifted in her seat, her smile growing. Gabriel closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there. But underneath it, something else was rising. Something older and stronger than shame. He began to speak. Now my charms are all o'erthrown, and what strength I have's mine own. His voice was rough at first, unused to projection. But it steadied as he continued, the words flowing back like muscle memory. Which is most faint? Now, 'tis true. I must be here confined by you. He moved as he spoke, crossing the stage with the kind of natural blocking that comes from years of training. His hands rose, gesturing, shaping the words in the air. All sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my dukedom got and pardon the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell. The audience had gone completely quiet. The kind of quiet that meant people were actually listening. Gabriel's voice grew stronger. He wasn't Gabriel Torres anymore. Not the janitor, not the widower, not the man who'd lost everything. He was Prospero, the exiled duke, the magician, the man who'd lost his power and was begging for it back. But release me from my bands with the help of your good hands. Gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails, which was to please. He could see faces now, individual people leaning forward in their seats. A woman in the third row had her hand pressed to her chest. An older man was nodding slowly, his eyes wet. Now I want spirits to enforce, art to enchant, and my ending is despair, unless I be relieved by prayer. Gabriel's voice broke on that word. Prayer. He thought of Elena, of the prayers he'd whispered in hospital rooms that went unanswered. He let the grief show, let it pour into the character, into the words, which pierces so that it assaults mercy itself and frees all faults. As you from crimes would pardon be, let your indulgence set me free. He finished. The last word hung in the air. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Then someone started clapping. The woman in the third row, tears running down her face. Then another person joined, then another, until the entire theater was on its feet. The applause crashed over Gabriel like a wave, like absolution, like Elena's voice telling him, yes, you still have this, you never lost this, it was always yours. He looked at Victoria. She was still sitting, the only person in the front row who hadn't stood. Her face was blank, unreadable. Then slowly, so slowly, she rose to her feet. She wasn't clapping. She was just staring at him, her mouth slightly open. The stage manager appeared at Gabriel's elbow, confused, trying to usher him off stage. But the audience kept clapping, kept cheering. Someone shouted, "More!" Another voice joined, then another. Gabriel walked off stage into the darkness. His legs were trembling so badly he could barely stand. He leaned against the brick wall and tried to catch his breath. James, the security guard, was there. "Holy hell," he whispered. "Gabriel, that was—" He couldn't finish. He just gripped Gabriel's shoulder and shook his head. Patricia from the box office came running. "The audience is asking who you are. They want to know when you're performing next." Gabriel slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. His hands were still shaking, but now it was different. Now it was adrenaline, not fear. Victoria Hartwell appeared in the doorway. The other staff melted away, suddenly busy with other tasks. She stood there for a long moment, backlit by the corridor lights, her shadow falling across Gabriel. "Where did you train?" she asked. Her voice was different now. "Careful." "Juilliard," Gabriel said. "Graduated 2006. Then grad school at Yale Drama." Her expression flickered. "And you're working here as a custodian." "My wife died. Medical bills. Lost my teaching position. Lost everything." He met her eyes. "Some people don't choose their place. It gets chosen for them." Victoria's jaw tightened. She turned to leave, then stopped. "The house manager said 6 people asked for your contact information. So they're theater producers, casting directors." She paused. "I told them you weren't available for representation." Gabriel stood slowly. "You did what?" "You work for this theater. Your job is to clean it, not perform in it." Her voice was cold again, back to the tone she'd used on the phone. "Consider this your warning. If you pull something like this again, showing off, trying to steal focus, you're fired." She walked away, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. Gabriel stood in the darkness backstage and felt the hope that had been building in his chest collapse like a house of cards. For 5 minutes, he'd been someone again. For 5 minutes, he'd remembered what it felt like to be seen, to be valued for something other than how well he mopped a floor. Now he was back to being invisible. Worse than invisible. A problem to be managed. He finished his shift, mopped the lobby where the audience had stood to applaud him, emptied the trash cans in the dressing rooms where real actors prepared for real performances, scrubbed the bathrooms until they gleamed. At 4 a.m., he clocked out and walked home through empty streets. Maya was asleep in their studio apartment, curled up under the thin blanket with her stuffed elephant tucked against her chest. The neighbor had left a note saying Maya had gone to bed without any trouble, had done all her homework, had asked when Daddy would be home. Gabriel sat on the edge of the mattress they shared and watched his daughter sleep. Her face was so much like Elena's it hurt to look at sometimes. Same dark eyes, same serious expression even in sleep, same way of frowning slightly when she dreamed. He thought about the 6 people who'd asked for his contact information. 6 producers, casting directors, people who could maybe, possibly, help him climb out of this hole. And Victoria had turned them away, had made sure the door stayed closed. The next morning, Gabriel woke to his phone ringing. He'd only had 3 hours of sleep, and his whole body ached. The number was unfamiliar. "Mr. Torres." A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "My name is Jennifer Martinez. I'm a talent agent with Morris Klein. I was in the audience last night at Riverside Theater." Gabriel sat up so fast his head spun. "I'm sorry. I don't understand." "Your performance of the Prospero monologue. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I haven't seen raw talent like that in a very long time." She paused. "I'd like to meet with you. Discuss representation." "I'm not available for representation," Gabriel said automatically, Victoria's words still fresh in his mind. "I'm not a working actor." "Then what are you?" Gabriel looked at Maya, now awake and watching him with curious eyes. "I'm a father, and a custodian." "Mr. Torres, I don't know what your situation is, but I saw something special last night. If you change your mind, please call me." She gave him her direct number, made him repeat it twice to make sure he had it right. After he hung up, Maya crawled into his lap. Who was that? Nobody, baby. Just work stuff. But it wasn't nobody. Over the next 2 days, 4 more calls came. A casting director for a regional production. A theater professor from UCLA. A director who'd seen cell phone footage someone had posted online. Apparently, 3 different people had filmed his performance, and now it was spreading across social media. Janitor's stunning Shakespeare performance goes viral, read one headline. Gabriel didn't return any of the calls. He couldn't. Victoria had made it clear. Step out of line, lose your job, lose everything. On the 3rd night after his performance, Gabriel arrived at the theater to find a letter waiting in his supervisor's office. Termination notice. Effective immediately. Reason given: violation of professional conduct. Misuse of theater space. Inappropriate interaction with patrons. His supervisor, Bill, a man in his 60s who'd been managing the maintenance crew for 30 years, looked miserable. I'm sorry, Gabriel. This came from the top. From the artistic director himself. I tried to fight it, but... Victoria Hartwell pushed for this, Gabriel said. It wasn't a question. Bill's silence was answer enough. Gabriel cleaned out his tiny locker. He had a spare shirt, a water bottle, Elena's photo. That was it. Everything else he'd accumulated in 18 months fit in his jacket pockets. He walked home in the rain. His phone was buzzing with messages, missed calls from unknown numbers. The video of his performance had over 300,000 views now. People were arguing in the comments. Some called it the most authentic Shakespeare they'd ever heard. Others said the whole thing was staged, a publicity stunt. Nobody knew he'd just lost his job. Nobody knew his rent was due in 3 days and he had $70 in his bank account. If you're still watching, if you stayed with this story this far, do me a favor. Hit the like button on this video. Leave a comment. Subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Check the description below for more stories like Gabriel's. Stories about people who refuse to stay down even when the world pushes them there. Because here's the truth. Every like, every comment, every share is a voice saying that Gabriel's story matters. That his talent matters. That he matters. And right now, as he walks home in the rain with everything falling apart, he needs to know that someone, somewhere, is bearing witness. Maya was waiting up when he got home, even though it was past her bedtime. She took one look at his face and knew. Kids always know. Did something bad happen? She asked. Gabriel sat down heavily on their second-hand couch. I lost my job, baby. Because you did the play. Yeah, because I did the play. Maya climbed up next to him, tucked herself under his arm the way she always did when things were scary. Mommy used to say you were the best actor she ever saw. Gabriel's throat closed up. Mommy was biased. No, she wasn't. She said you made her cry every time. Happy crying and sad crying. Maya looked up at him with Elena's eyes. Will you be an actor again now? I don't know, baby. I don't think so. Why not? Everyone loved you. I saw the videos online. The one with you has more views than Victoria Hartwell's real show. Gabriel hadn't known that. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and checked. Maya was right. Someone had posted footage of Victoria's official performance from opening night. It had 180,000 views. His impromptu monologue had 380,000 and climbing. The comments on his video were overwhelmingly positive. This is what real acting looks like. Forget the prima donna. Give this man a contract. Who is he? Somebody cast him in something immediately. But there were other comments too. I heard the theater fired him for this. Victoria Hartwell apparently got him blacklisted. The industry protects stars, not talent. Gabriel's phone rang again. Another unknown number. This time he answered. Mr. Torres, my name is David Chen. I'm a producer with the Geffen Playhouse in Los Angeles. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. I'm sorry. I've been dealing with some personal issues. I understand you lost your position at Riverside Theater. I also understand why. Chen's voice was gentle. Mr. Torres, I'd like to offer you a role. Lead role, 6-week run, equity contract with full benefits. It's a new play about a teacher who loses everything and has to rebuild his life from nothing. The playwright saw your performance online and said you're exactly what he envisioned. Gabriel couldn't speak. He looked at Maya, who was watching him with bright, hopeful eyes. The pay is $1,200 per week, Chen continued. Plus housing stipend if you need it. Rehearsals start in 2 weeks. I don't understand. Victoria Hartwell told agents I wasn't available. Yes, well, Victoria Hartwell doesn't run my theater. And to be frank, after the way this situation has played out online, her opinion carries less weight than it used to. Chen paused. The industry has a long memory for talent, Mr. Torres, and an even longer memory for people who try to bury it. Gabriel took the job. He had to. It was either that or end up on the street with a 7-year-old daughter to feed. The next 2 weeks were chaos. He couldn't afford the deposit on a new apartment in Los Angeles, so Jennifer Martinez, the agent who'd first called him, paid it out of her own pocket. Consider it an advance on future earnings, she said. I have a feeling you're going to be very busy soon. She was right. 2 more theaters called with offers. A streaming service wanted to audition him for a limited series. A film director sent a personal email asking if Gabriel would read for a supporting role in an independent feature. But underneath all of it, there was a current of resistance. Whispers that Gabriel was difficult, unprofessional, had gotten fired from his last job. Victoria Hartwell wasn't talking to the press directly, but her publicist was making sure certain stories circulated. Stories about a janitor who'd overstepped, who'd manipulated a situation for personal gain, who'd brought negative attention to a respected regional theater. Gabriel started rehearsals at the Geffen Playhouse. The play was called The Distance Between, and it was about a former teacher named Thomas who ends up homeless after his wife dies and medical debt destroys him. The parallels to Gabriel's life were uncomfortable and exact. The director, a woman named Patricia Reeves, pulled him aside after the first read-through. I know this is hard, reliving your trauma every night on stage. But that's also why you're the only person who can do this role justice. Gabriel threw himself into the work. He rehearsed until his voice gave out. He studied the character until he couldn't tell where Thomas ended and Gabriel began. He thought about Elena, about Maya, about every moment of the past 18 months when he'd felt invisible, worthless, erased. He poured all of it into the performance. Opening night came. The theater was sold out, every seat filled. People had driven from all over California, some from other states. The video of Gabriel's Prospero monologue had gone fully viral now, over 2 million views. Entertainment Weekly had run a profile. The Los Angeles Times had published an op-ed about classism in theater. Gabriel stood backstage, waiting for his entrance, and thought about that night at Riverside Theater. The fear, the humiliation, the way Victoria Hartwell had smiled while she watched him suffer. The lights came up. Gabriel walked onto the stage. For the next 90 minutes, he disappeared. He became Thomas, the broken teacher, the grieving widower, the man who'd lost everything but refused to lose himself. He played the character's rage and despair and desperate, clawing hope. He played the moments of grace, the small kindnesses from strangers, the struggle to keep dignity when the world strips everything else away. In the front row, Jennifer Martinez watched with tears streaming down her face. Beside her, David Chen sat forward in his seat, completely still. In the back, a talent scout from Netflix took notes with shaking hands. When the lights came down for intermission, the audience sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, people began to cry. Not polite, quiet tears. Deep, wrenching sobs. The kind of crying that happens when art reaches in and touches something raw and true. The second act was even more powerful. Gabriel played Thomas's final scene, a monologue about rebuilding from nothing, about teaching his daughter that falling down doesn't mean staying down, with such ferocious tenderness that half the audience was weeping openly by the end. The standing ovation lasted 8 minutes. Backstage, Gabriel collapsed into a chair and tried to remember how to breathe. His body was shaking. His shirt was soaked with sweat. He felt emptied out, hollowed, like he'd left pieces of himself scattered across the stage. Patricia Reeves knelt in front of him. Gabriel, that was extraordinary. He couldn't respond, couldn't speak. Jennifer Martinez appeared with a bottle of water. The producer from Netflix wants to meet with you immediately. So does the casting director from Paramount. Gabriel, I think you need to prepare yourself. This is going to change everything. She was right. By the next morning, Gabriel had offers from 3 major studios. A cable network wanted him for a limited series about a working-class family. A prestigious theater in New York invited him to do a 6-month run of Death of a Salesman. A film director wanted him to audition for a role that had already been cast twice, because after seeing footage of The Distance Between, she'd realized Gabriel was who the character had needed to be all along. The money was staggering, more than Gabriel had made in the past 5 years combined. Enough to get a real apartment with a room for Maya. Enough to pay off Elena's medical debt. Enough to start a savings account. To think about the future as something more than just surviving until tomorrow. But Victoria Hartwell wasn't done. 3 weeks into the run of The Distance Between, a story broke. An anonymous source told a major entertainment blog that Gabriel Torres had lied about his credentials, that he'd never actually graduated from Juilliard, had fabricated his entire theatrical background, was a con artist who'd manipulated social media and public sympathy to launch a fake career. The story spread fast. Within hours, every major outlet was covering it. Gabriel's phone exploded with calls from journalists wanting comment, from colleagues expressing concern, from the Geffen Playhouse's legal team asking for documentation. Gabriel provided everything. His Juilliard diploma, his transcripts from Yale, photos from productions he'd been in, programs with his name listed, recommendation letters from professors and directors. Every piece of proof he had. The entertainment blog retracted the story within 24 hours. Issued an apology. But the damage was done. The whispers had started. Some people believed the retraction, but others wondered if Gabriel had faked the evidence, if maybe there was truth to the original allegations. Jennifer Martinez was livid. This came from Victoria. I don't have proof, but I know it did. She's trying to destroy you. Why? Gabriel asked. Why does she care this much? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. Not anymore. And that's exactly why she cares. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, her expression grim. Victoria Hartwell has been the most important actor at Riverside Theater for 8 years. She's been the star. Then you show up, and in 5 minutes you make her irrelevant. The video of your Prospero has 10 times the views of her entire Tempest production. Every article about the Riverside Theater mentions you, not her. You didn't just embarrass her. You eclipsed her. Gabriel thought about Victoria's face that night, after his performance. The blank expression, the careful control. He thought it was shock. Now he realized it was something else. Fear. The fear of being replaced, of realizing that talent doesn't respect fame or status or carefully cultivated careers. The run of The Distance Between continued. The houses stayed sold out. Critics called Gabriel's performance a revelation, the most honest acting in a generation, proof that great art still exists. But everywhere Gabriel went, he could feel the undercurrent of doubt Victoria had planted. Are you sure he's legitimate? Are you sure this isn't all manufactured? It was exhausting. Gabriel was working harder than he'd ever worked, doing 8 shows a week plus daily interviews and auditions and meetings. Maya was thriving in her new school, making friends, doing better than she had in years. But Gabriel couldn't shake the feeling that it was all temporary, that Victoria was waiting, planning her next move, and when it came, it would be worse. He was right. 4 weeks into the run, a woman approached Gabriel after a performance. She was middle-aged, well-dressed, carrying a leather portfolio. Mr. Torres, I'm Caroline Ashford. I'm the artistic director at Riverside Theater. Gabriel went very still. I know who you are. I need to speak with you. Privately. They found an empty office. Caroline closed the door and turned to face him. I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually. For firing me. For allowing you to be fired. For not investigating the circumstances more carefully. For letting Victoria Hartwell's influence override my better judgment. Caroline sat down heavily. I've been reviewing the situation, Mr. Torres. I've spoken with other staff members, reviewed the timeline, looked at what actually happened that night. Victoria set you up. She forced you onto that stage intending to humiliate you, And when it backfired, she made sure you were punished for it. Gabriel said nothing. He'd known this, of course. But hearing it acknowledged out loud was different. Caroline continued, I'm here to offer you your job back. With a formal apology, back pay for the time you were terminated, and a letter of recommendation for any future positions. I don't want my custodial job back, Gabriel said quietly. I know, but you deserve the apology anyway. You deserve to have the records set straight. Caroline opened her portfolio and pulled out several documents. These are statements from every member of the maintenance staff, several actors, and 2 directors who worked with Victoria during that production. They are all willing to go on record about her behavior, her treatment of you, the patterns of bullying and intimidation. Why are you telling me this? Because Victoria Hartwell is trying to destroy your career, and I want you to have ammunition to fight back. Caroline's expression hardened. She's been calling other theaters, other producers, telling them you're unprofessional, unreliable, possibly dangerous. She's using her reputation and connections to blacklist you. And I'm not going to let her do it. They met at a coffee shop in downtown Los Angeles. Gabriel and Jennifer Martinez and Caroline Ashford and a lawyer named Marcus Reed who specialized in entertainment law. Marcus spread documents across the table like he was building a case, which in fact he was. We have 3 options, Marcus said. 1. We go public. Release all of this information. Let the court of public opinion decide. 2. We pursue legal action. Defamation, interference with business relationships, possibly more. 3. We do nothing and hope Victoria runs out of steam. Option 3 isn't an option, Jennifer said flatly. She's not stopping. If anything, she's escalating. Gabriel looked at the documents. Statements from people who'd worked with Victoria. Patterns of behavior going back years. Other actors she'd sabotaged, other careers she'd undermined. Email chains where she explicitly discussed strategies for making sure Gabriel didn't succeed. I don't want revenge, Gabriel said slowly. I want her to stop. I want to be able to work without looking over my shoulder. Marcus nodded. Then we need leverage. We need something that makes it more costly for her to continue than to back down. What they needed, it turned out, was sitting in a storage room at Riverside Theater. Security footage from the night Gabriel performed. Footage that showed Victoria deliberately forcing him onto the stage, laughing with another actor about how they were going to teach the janitor a lesson, making sure the audience was told this was a special surprise rather than what it actually was, a planned humiliation. Caroline had saved the footage, had known, even then, that something wasn't right about the situation. Marcus reviewed it with the kind of careful attention lawyers give to evidence that could change everything. This is damning. Not just for Victoria, but for the theater's original decision to terminate Gabriel. This shows malice, premeditation, and abuse of power. What do we do with it? Gabriel asked. We give Victoria a choice, Marcus said. She can publicly acknowledge what she did, issue a formal apology, and cease all efforts to interfere with your career. Or we release this footage, along with all the supporting documentation, and let her explain herself to the industry and the public. They sent the offer through Victoria's lawyer. Gave her 72 hours to respond. The response came in 48. A meeting request. Victoria wanted to speak with Gabriel directly. No lawyers, no mediators. Just the 2 of them. Gabriel almost refused. Jennifer and Marcus both advised against it. But something in him needed to face her, needed to understand what drove someone to work so hard at destroying another person. They met in a neutral location, a hotel conference room in Santa Monica. Victoria arrived exactly on time, dressed in the kind of casually expensive clothes that only look simple because they cost thousands of dollars. She sat down across from Gabriel and was quiet for a long moment. I'm not going to apologize, she said finally, because I don't think you'd believe me if I did. Probably not, Gabriel agreed. I'm 43 years old. I've been acting professionally since I was 19. I've done everything right. Trained with the best teachers, built my reputation carefully, worked with important directors, made the right connections. Victoria's voice was controlled, but underneath it something was breaking. And you walk onto a stage with no preparation, no warning, in a maintenance uniform, and you're better than I've ever been. Better than I'll ever be. Gabriel said nothing. What was there to say to that? It made me feel erased, Victoria continued. Like everything I'd built meant nothing. Like talent was the only thing that mattered, and I didn't have enough of it. She looked at him directly for the first time. So I tried to erase you back. That's honest, Gabriel said. But it doesn't excuse anything. I know. And it doesn't explain why you kept going. Why you tried to destroy my career after I was already gone. Victoria was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Because every time someone praised you, every time another opportunity came your way, it felt like proof. Proof that I was right to be afraid. Proof that I wasn't good enough. Gabriel thought about Elena, about the fear he'd carried since she died. The fear that he wasn't good enough to take care of Maya, to rebuild his life, to be the person his wife had believed he could be. Fear made people do terrible things. Understanding it didn't mean forgiving it. Here's what's going to happen, Gabriel said. You're going to stop. No more phone calls to theaters. No more whisper campaigns. No more trying to sabotage my career. You're going to release a statement acknowledging that you misrepresented the circumstances of my termination from Riverside Theater and that you regret any negative impact your actions may have had on my professional opportunities. And if I refuse, then Marcus releases everything. The footage, the emails, the statements from your colleagues. And you get to explain to the industry why you spent 2 months trying to destroy a widowed father who was working as a janitor to survive. Victoria closed her eyes. You know this will end my career. You tried to end mine, Gabriel said. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. She took the deal. The statement went out 3 days later. Carefully worded, written by her lawyer, but clear enough. Victoria Hartwell acknowledged that she had acted inappropriately, that Gabriel Torres was a talented actor who deserved opportunities, that she regretted the situation. It wasn't an apology, but it was enough to stop the bleeding. The offers that had slowed down started coming again. The roles that had quietly been pulled back were offered again. Gabriel signed with a major agency, booked a supporting role in a film that would shoot in Vancouver for 3 months, agreed to do a limited series for a streaming platform. The run of The Distance Between ended. Gabriel's final performance was on a Saturday night, with Maya watching from the front row. She'd seen the show twice before, but this time was different. This time, she understood that the character on stage, Thomas, was a version of her father. A version who'd survived everything and come out the other side. When Gabriel delivered Thomas's final monologue, the one about teaching his daughter to stand back up, he looked directly at Maya. Spoke the words to her. The world will knock you down, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the theater. It will tell you that you don't belong, that you're not good enough, that you should accept your place and stop reaching for more. And maybe you'll believe it for a while. Maybe you'll have to. But here's what I need you to know. That place they put you in, that box they build around you, it's not real. It's never been real. It only has as much power as you give it. Maya was crying. So was half the audience, and Gabriel, and probably half the crew backstage. So when they knock you down, Gabriel continued, and they will, here's what you do. You get back up, and you get back up, and you keep getting back up until they understand that you were never on the ground at all. You were just resting. The lights faded. The audience erupted. Backstage, Maya launched herself into Gabriel's arms. He caught her, held her tight, felt her small body shaking with sobs against his chest. You did it, Daddy, she whispered. You got back up. We did it, Gabriel corrected. We got back up together. 6 months later, Gabriel stood on a red carpet for the premiere of the film he'd shot in Vancouver. He was wearing a suit that actually fit, that he'd been able to buy himself. Maya was beside him in a dress she'd picked out, holding his hand and waving at cameras like she'd been doing this a whole life. Jennifer Martinez walked them through the press line, made introductions, kept them moving. Gabriel answered questions about the film, about his journey, about what was next. He was professional, gracious, present. But the question he kept getting, over and over, was about Victoria Hartwell. Do you forgive her? Are you two in contact? Would you ever work with her? Gabriel's answer was always the same. I don't spend time thinking about Victoria Hartwell. I'm focused on the work, on my daughter, on building the career I want. That's all. It was true. He had thought about Victoria extensively for weeks after their confrontation, had tried to understand her, to find empathy for her fear. But eventually, he'd realized that understanding someone doesn't mean carrying them. Some people make their choices, and you have to let them live with the consequences. Victoria's career hadn't ended, but it had changed. She was still booking roles, but smaller ones, supporting parts in productions that used to give her leads. Some of that was age, the industry's brutal calculus for women over 40. But some of it was reputation. Word had gotten around about what she'd done, and while there were no formal consequences, there was a shift. People were more careful around her, less willing to champion her. Gabriel had heard through industry connections that she'd left Los Angeles, was doing theater in Chicago now. Smaller houses, but good work. Maybe she was rebuilding. Maybe she was finally learning to value the craft over the status. He hoped so, not for her sake, but for whoever else might cross her path. The film premiered to strong reviews. Gabriel's performance was singled out in every major publication. A star is born, one critic wrote. Torres brings a depth and authenticity that's been missing from cinema for years. The offers multiplied. Gabriel was suddenly in demand, the kind of actor directors wanted to build projects around. He could be selective now, could turn down roles that didn't interest him, could negotiate for the kind of creative control most actors spent decades trying to earn. But the work he was proudest of wasn't in film or television. It was the scholarship program he'd started at Riverside Community College, funded by his first major paychecks. The Gabriel and Elena Torres Scholarship for Theater Arts. Full tuition for students who showed exceptional talent but couldn't afford training. No strings attached, no requirements except a commitment to the craft. 5 students received the scholarship in the first year. One of them was a single mother working 2 jobs. Another was a kid who'd been living in his car. The third was a former addict trying to rebuild his life through art. Gabriel met with each of them personally, told them his story, told them Elena's story, told them that the world would try to convince them they didn't belong. But talent doesn't care about circumstance or status or how much money you have in your bank account. The only thing that matters, he said, is whether you are willing to keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Keep believing that you have something to offer even when nobody else sees it. Maya, now 8.5, started drama classes at her school. She was good, genuinely good, with timing and presence that couldn't be taught. Gabriel watched her in the school play, a small role as a townsperson, and saw Elena's fire in her, saw his own stubbornness, saw something entirely her own, something neither of them had given her. After the performance, Maya asked if she could be an actor like him when she grew up. If that's what you want, Gabriel said. But you should know, it's not an easy life. Even now, even with everything that's happened, it's still hard. Because people are mean sometimes. Maya asked. Sometimes, yeah. And because even when they're not mean, the work itself is hard. You have to keep giving pieces of yourself away, performance after performance, and hope you can find those pieces again when you're done. Maya thought about this seriously. But you love it, right? Even when it's hard. Yeah, baby, I love it. Then I think I want to try. Gabriel hugged her. Okay, then we'll try together. A year after his performance at Riverside Theater, Gabriel was nominated for a prestigious theater award for his work in The Distance Between. The ceremony was held in New York, at a venue so grand Gabriel felt like an imposter walking in. He didn't win. The award went to another actor, someone older and more established, who'd been nominated 6 times before. Gabriel applauded genuinely, relieved in some ways. He wasn't ready for that level of attention yet, that level of expectation. But after the ceremony, at the reception, a woman approached him. She was in her 70s, elegant, with the kind of presence that turned heads without trying. Mr. Torres, I'm Ann Morrison. Gabriel knew the name. And Morrison was a legend, one of the greatest actors of her generation. She'd won every award there was to win, had worked with every director worth working with. It's an honor to meet you, Gabriel said, meaning it. The honor is mine. I saw The Distance Between when I was in Los Angeles. You're quite good. She smiled at his stunned expression. I mean that. You have something rare. an honesty in your work that most actors spend their whole careers trying to fake. Thank you. That means more than I can say. I wanted to tell you something else, and said. Something I wish someone had told me when I was younger. The industry will try to make you prove yourself over and over. We'll act like every success is a fluke, like you have to earn the right to be here again and again. Don't believe that. You've already proven yourself. Now you just have to keep doing the work. She squeezed his hand and moved on to greet someone else, leaving Gabriel standing there with tears in his eyes. Now, 2 years after that night at Riverside Theater, Gabriel sits in the apartment he shares with Maya. It's a real apartment, 2 bedrooms, in a safe neighborhood with good schools. Maya's room is decorated with posters from shows she's seen, plays she wants to be in someday. Gabriel's room is simple, spare. He keeps Elena's photo on the nightstand, talks to her sometimes when he's learning new lines. Tonight, he's preparing for a role that scares him more than anything he's done before. A Broadway production, 8 shows a week, 4 months. The lead role in a revival of Angels in America. It's the kind of part that makes or breaks careers. Maya is asleep in the next room. Gabriel can hear her breathing through the thin walls, that steady rhythm that's kept him anchored through everything. He thinks about Victoria Hartwell sometimes, wonders if she thinks about him, wonders if she's found peace with what happened, or if the resentment still burns. He thinks about the 6 people who wanted his contact information that first night, the 6 people Victoria turned away. Wonders what might have happened if she'd given them his number. Would it have been easier? Would he have avoided the pain and struggle and doubt of the past 2 years? Maybe, but he wouldn't trade it, because every moment of suffering taught him something. Every setback proved he could survive it. Every time he got knocked down and stood back up, he became a little bit stronger, a little bit more certain of who he was. If you've made it this far in Gabriel's story, I want to ask you something. Hit the like button if this story moved you. Leave a comment telling me what it made you feel, what it reminded you of in your own life. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about people who refused to stay down, who kept fighting even when the world told them to quit. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their talent matters, that their dreams matter, that they matter. Check the description for resources, for other stories, for ways to support artists and workers who are fighting for their chance. Because Gabriel's story isn't unique. It's happening everywhere, right now, in every city and every town. And the only way we change that is by witnessing it, by refusing to look away, by saying loudly and clearly that everyone deserves the chance to show what they can do. Gabriel closes his script and turns off the light. Tomorrow he starts rehearsals. Tomorrow he steps onto another stage, into another role, into another chance to prove that talent and will and stubborn refusal to quit can overcome almost anything. He's not naive. He knows there will be more setbacks, more people like Victoria, more moments when the world tries to push him back into the box labeled, not good enough. But he also knows something now that he didn't know 2 years ago. He belongs here, not because someone gave him permission, not because he proved himself to the right people, but because the work itself, the craft, the art, it's his. It always was. Nobody can take that away. In the morning, Maya will wake up and they'll have breakfast together. She'll tell him about the scene she's working on for drama class. He'll help her with her lines, give her notes, watch her face light up when she gets a moment right. Then he'll take her to school, kiss her forehead, and head to rehearsal. He'll walk into that theater, and he'll remember another theater, another stage, another moment when everything hung in the balance. He'll remember standing behind a curtain with his hands shaking and his heart pounding and 300 people waiting to watch him fail. He'll remember walking onto that stage anyway. That's the story he tells himself now. Not about Victoria Hartwell or injustice or proving anyone wrong, but about the moment he chose to step into the light, even when the light was burning, even when everyone was watching, even when failure seemed certain. He stepped into it anyway. And that decision, that single moment of courage or desperation or stubborn refusal to be erased, changed everything that came after. So here's what Gabriel would tell you, if you asked. Here's what he'd want you to know. The world will try to tell you who you are. Will try to put you in a box, give you a label, make you small enough to be manageable. Your boss will do it. The people with power will do it. Sometimes even the people who love you will do it, because they are scared and they want you to be safe. And for a while, you might have to let them. You might have to take the job that pays the bills even if it makes you feel invisible. You might have to smile and nod and accept your place because survival requires it. But never, ever forget who you really are. Never forget what you're capable of. Never let anyone convince you that the label they gave you is the truth. Because here's what Gabriel learned, standing on that stage at Riverside Theatre with soap still on his hands and fear in his throat. The truth of who you are, the essence of your talent and your worth, it doesn't disappear just because nobody's looking. It doesn't die just because you have to hide it for a while. It waits, patient and stubborn and absolutely unwilling to be erased. And when your moment comes, when someone finally gives you the chance or you take it yourself, that truth explodes out of you like it's been trapped too long, like it's been waiting your whole life for exactly this. That's what happened to Gabriel. That's what can happen to anyone willing to hold on to their truth, even when the world tells them to let go. Gabriel Torres didn't become someone new that night at Riverside Theatre. He just finally became visible. The talent was always there. The skill was always there. The worthiness was always there. He just needed the world to shut up long enough to show them. And in the end, that's the only revenge worth having. Not destroying the people who tried to destroy you. Not proving them wrong. But becoming so undeniably, magnificently yourself that their opinion stops mattering altogether. Victoria Hartwell tried to erase Gabriel Torres. Instead, she gave him the stage. And once he was on it, once he had the light and the audience and the chance to show what he could do, there was no erasing him ever again. That's the story. That's the truth. That's what happens when you refuse to accept the place the world gives you. When you keep getting back up. When you remember that you were never on the ground at all. You were just resting, gathering your strength, waiting for your moment. And when it comes, when you finally step into that light, make sure you're ready. Make sure you've kept your talent sharp and your spirit intact. Make sure you've held on to the truth of who you are. Because the world is waiting. Not to judge you or diminish you or put you back in your place. But to finally see you.